A religious group that is highly funded by very wealthy donors has somehow brought in a fringe group of doctors who could be convinced to say the things they want them to say. That is their propaganda. Mifepristone is a medication used for medication abortion. So first off, the medication is extremely safe. So mifepristone, if you compare it head to head with the risk of various other medications that have much less restriction on obtaining them, penicillin has a death rate that is 4 times higher than mifepristone. Viagra has a death rate that is 8 times higher than mifepristone, and pregnancy has a death rate that is 16 times higher than the use of mifepristone. So the fact that this entire case, as I'm about to describe, comes down to a group, a very partisan group, alleging that the FDA doesn't know what they're doing and approved a medication that's unsafe is, quite frankly, stupidity, right? There's no data that supports that. Now, are there doctors that this group has probably richly provided funds to in order to get them to say that it's not safe? Absolutely. Are there doctors who believe it because, I don't know, they forgot how to do science? Yes, for sure. But the truth of this is that does not agree with the current evidence. Tylenol is definitely, yes, more people die from Tylenol than mifepristone. Each year, roughly 600 people in the US will die from Tylenol overdose. And in 26 years of following safety data on mifepristone, there have been 4.9 million uses and 13 related deaths, 13 unrelated deaths, meaning 26 total deaths, 13 of them thought to be related to mifepristone, and even some of those were unclear. Okay, that's compared to 600 people per year, 13 over 26 years for mifepristone, 600 a year for Tylenol. So the way that mifepristone is currently regulated in the US is that it is held in a category as far as the prescribing restrictions, which is on the same level as things like thalidomide. Okay, we know, huge scandal, thalidomide, very dangerous. Fentanyl, it's in the same category as fentanyl. Okay, it's held in that same category. So it's already very difficult to prescribe it. You have to have a special prescribing authority. You have to use a special script. You have to get special consent forms signed. The pharmacy that dispenses it has to have a special dispensing authority. So when I worked in Texas, I never was told in training like how to get that prescribing authority or what I needed to do or where I applied or anything like that. And 2, it wouldn't have mattered if I had been told that because the pharmacies that were near me did not have a dispensing authority, and I don't have any control over that. So I couldn't use this in Texas as it was. Now, I'm sure there are places in Texas where it could be accessed, particularly if, you have an abortion clinic or something, which don't exist anymore, but they could become a dispensing authority for it. But I wouldn't have been able to do that out of my clinic because of the restrictions on offering abortion within our hospital system. So the fact that it's already regulated to that extent should, I think, be discussed before we go into what happened because it's crazy as it is. And actually, I think a lot of those restrictions should be removed. Now, so what happened? A few months ago, a very, very well-funded group called the Alliance Defending Freedom is bringing a case against the FDA. So they're suing the Food and Drug Administration, alleging that mifepristone was not sufficiently proven to be safe in 2000 when it was approved. I think importantly, just for reference, you should know a little bit about the ADF, Alliance for Defending Freedom. This is a religious group. They are an extremely religious group, and they are labeled as a hate group by the SPLC. And they are funded with a revenue of over $79 million in 2021. 0% of which they paid taxes on. Instead of paying taxes, they allegedly spend their money providing legal defense for a lesbian woman who kidnapped her child when moved out of state. And then to Nicaragua, in effort to get only to places where they don't recognize what was at the time a civil union between her and her partner, because apparently she's unlesbian now and very religious and wants to control her child's life by removing the child from its other mother. And they provided her legal defense. Sounds like a great use of money, okay? sarcasm. They had advocated on behalf of political groups in Belize to tell them how they could keep gay sex a criminal offense, punishable by a decade in prison. Yes, they did give money to political groups in Belize to make sure that they could get punished for having gay sex by a decade in prison. Legal representation for 2 separate widely known cases defending businesses who refused services on the basis of sexuality or gender. And then most recently, famously, they have filed suit against the FDA to attempt to get mifepristone unapproved. All right, so this is unprecedented. This has never happened because why would individual groups ever go like trying to get medication unapproved? That doesn't make any sense. They've employed something called forum shopping for this. And I know a lot about this because I made this video a while back, but also they filed the case in the district in rural Texas where Kaczmarek is the judge. And I know this district well because it's my hometown is in this district. And he is a Trump-appointed extreme conservative judge who has a history of ruling on wildly terrible things in wildly terrible ways. And so they knew he's the only judge in this district, so he will have to be the one hearing it. And they knew he would rule in their favor. The ADF claimed mifepristone is not safe, and the DOJ lawyers concluded what I would conclude on this, which is that, there's no existing legal precedent to remove a longstanding FDA approval on the basis of a medication being unsafe as deemed by, a bunch of non-experts. And this medication is used all over the world safely, including in Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I live, including all over the US. It was first approved in France in 1988 and had 2 very large clinical trials backing it prior to that approval. It's been approved in the United States since 2000. We've already reviewed the plethora of safety data that continues to support this medication being safe to use. The ADF kind of countered, despite the DOJ saying what I just said, and said like, oh no, actually the FDA failed to study the safety of the drug. They ignored harmful side effects. That's just patently false. I've provided a lot of information as to why. The recent update on that from, I don't even know what news station this is. I just saw it and wanted to add it.
I was just handed this ruling from the Fifth Circuit.
It's long.
I haven't seen it, but this is about, the access to the abortion pill.
Yes, and this is the same case that had been circulating its way around earlier this year. It's the most commonly used pill in the country, mifepristone, and a lower judge in Texas.
It's not, I don't know it's not the most commonly used pill in the country. Maybe it is one of the 2 pill regimens in the most commonly used medication abortion pill, but it's not the most commonly used pill in the country. I don't think that's accurate.
Case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, let's just slow everything down. I'm going to put a pause on that lower court ruling while the case continues to play out. Well, it has now continued to play out, and it went back down to the...
Yeah, so what she's saying is that when this original ruling went through, they said, okay, we'll elevate it. And they knew with that forum shopping that it would be elevated to the 7th Circuit of Louisiana, where there was also a very conservative group of people who would be making the ruling, and they expected that it would continue to be upheld there. But the judge did say, okay, we're going to just hold on everything. Like, we're not going to immediately make it unavailable, but we'll continue to hear it, which is equally stupid in my...
And it is upholding part of that original Texas ruling, but only in part. And the part that it says is okay is having to do with getting the pill by mail, all the ways that women were able to get it more easily.
So that can still happen?
No, that's the part that they said cannot happen.
But this wouldn't have loosened restrictions. All this is going to do is roll back previous access. So I want to pull up real quick because currently abortion pills are legal to receive in the mail in every state. Some of you know Jennifer Lincoln. We talked about her on the last stream, actually. Hi, Jen, you're showing up on every stream now. She is one of the founders of Mayday Health, which has lots of information about birth control, morning after pills, abortion pills. She has very good information about how to get these based on where you live, what state you live in. Just really excellent source of information if you need it. There you go. FYI.
The reason they do that, Chris, is they say that the FDA failed to address several important concerns about whether the drug would be safe for the women that use it. So it's all about safety.
This is false. This is ridiculous.
Safety. Remember, this was a case that was filed by a group of advocates and doctors who are against abortion.
This is not a group that was filed by advocates and doctors against abortion. This is a group that a religious group that is highly funded by very wealthy donors has hired or somehow brought in a fringe group of doctors who could be convinced to say the things they want them to say. The fact that they're framing this even on what is supposed to be a neutral broadcast, or even maybe left-leaning broadcast, as being a group of concerned doctors is really bothersome. That is their propaganda. That is how they want this to be presented. That is not who filed this.
In this case, the court said those doctors and those advocates actually put forth enough evidence, at least at this point, to get a stay on, again, just the piece of the ruling that has to do with the loosening of restrictions. Practical impact, nothing changes for anybody right now because of that Supreme Court ruling. But this does tee up an appeal to the Supreme Court now by the Justice Department.
And that is, that is exactly what they wanted. They wanted to tee up an appeal to the Supreme Court, and that's what they did. So they got that done exactly like they planned on it. The people making these decisions have absolutely no medical training. They have absolutely no understanding of how to read medical scientific literature. They have absolutely no understanding of the fact that these medications are not only used for abortion, by the way. This is the most safe, evidence-based use of medication used for a missed miscarriage or an incomplete miscarriage. These medications are used for people who have a stillborn baby that needs to be induced and deliver. This is not just a abortion medication, right? This is used because it's all functionally the same thing as far as the process that your body goes through. These are used for abortion, miscarriage, stillbirth, many, 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 many uses.